Vanakkam. I'm Vayoni Dimel. This is Boston Lanka News, bringing you news, views and entertainment from Boston and USA. Challenges of sharing the true story of Sri Lanka with the US policymakers, Ambassador Jaliya Wickramasuriya. Hurricane Sandy brings untold sufferings to Sri Lankans in the Staten Island, New York. Efforts to engage with the Tamil Diaspora in USA, Ambassador Wickramasuriya explains. Newly elected US President Barack Obama, the living proof of the American dream. The challenges the Sri Lankan diplomats face in countries like USA are enormous, especially now after the elimination of the terrorism from Sri Lanka. Although the international community is in unison support and commend the eradication of terrorism of Sri Lanka, there are many different views and accusations about how Sri Lankan political and military leaders have done that. It has been more challenging to convince the majority of the Tamil Diaspora that Sri Lankan government intends to make the lives of all Sri Lankans better and secure. Sri Lankan Ambassador to USA, Mr. Jaliya Wickramasuriya. We know that you have been more aggressive than your predecessors in reaching out to US policymakers to tell them the real story of the development and reconciliation in Sri Lanka. Do you think you are making an impact?
Yes, of course. I know most of the former ambassadors also did a good job of engaging with the US officials and protecting Sri Lanka and giving the actual story of Sri Lanka. Most of them were very active and did what needed to be done for Sri Lanka at that time. Since I have served as the ambassador for the year before the end of the conflict and also this critical post-conflict period, my challenges were different. During the conflict, I had to keep important officials briefed on a daily basis regarding the humanitarian operation. In the post-conflict situation, I have been informing officials about all of the progress and developments. I interact with executive branch, members of the Congress, in the House and Senate, State Department, Defense Department officials and other officials. I work to enhance the image of Sri Lanka as a peaceful and reconciled society which is governed by democracy, the observance of human rights and the rule of law, as I mentioned before. I informed US officials about the major progress the government of Sri Lanka has made and the government's elaborate program to implement the recommendations of the Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission. Policymakers in the US are now aware that there is no more conflict in Sri Lanka and they know about the many positive developments taking place. They are well aware that Sri Lanka today is a country at peace and there has been no loss of life due to terrorism since the end of the conflict for last 3 years. That is the reality about Sri Lanka.
Could you please tell us about any major developments in US trade relations with Sri Lanka, especially during your time?
Thank you very much for that question because it's a trade related. I really interested talking about that. I'm from the private sector too before becoming the ambassador. The Sri Lanka and the US are committed to expanding the commercial and economic ties between the two countries. The US continue to be Sri Lanka's largest export market. In 2011, the total trade turnover between Sri Lanka and the US was US dollars 2,478 million. And Sri Lanka's export to USA showed a growth of 19%, amounting to US dollars 2,183 million. The latest figure up to August 2012 is US dollars 1,607 million. We are optimistic that Sri Lanka will expand its exports to USA despite the current global economic slowdown. Sri Lanka's export basket to the US is very diverse. Garments continue to be the largest contribution to our export value in US market, with 70% of our total exports. Rubber products, gem and jewelry, seafood, processed food, electronic and electrical products, coconut products, Ceylon tea, spices and essential oils, aquarium fish, wooden toys feature prominently in other product categories. Annually, both countries hold a joint council meeting of Trade and Investment Framework Agreement, we call it TIFA, and the TIFA talks have become a cornerstone in our bilateral economic relations since its inception in 2002. The embassy has arranged numerous delegation visits to Sri Lanka with US importers, prospective investors and service providers. Recently, we embarked on a vigorous campaign to promote Ceylon tea in the US market. Sri Lanka also participated at Global Sourcing Forum, which was conducted by the Women Wear Daily, WWD, to promote Sri Lanka apparel industry. According to a report issued by the World Bank and IMF this week, Sri Lanka has claimed the highest spot in the global ease of doing business ranking in the South Asian region, while advancing its ranking to 81 from 89. That shows Sri Lanka is ready for business. Promoting Sri Lanka as a destination among US travelers is another important task that we undertake. In 2011, 24,300 US tourists traveled to Sri Lanka, which is a 28% increase from 19,000 in 2010. Our short-term objective is to increase to 45,000 within the next 3 years, while expecting in the long term arrivals of around 100,000 US tourists to visit Sri Lanka by 2017. In 2012, up to last month, tourist arrivals from USA to Sri Lanka have also gone up by 35%. And Sri Lanka was one of National Geography's top 10 places to visit in 2011. While attracting tourists to Sri Lanka, we are also encouraging US investors to actively engage in Sri Lankan leisure industry.
The Hurricane Sandy brought so much devastation to New York, New Jersey and Connecticut, but the scale of the damage on Staten Island has some experts wondering if its communities will ever be the same. Staten Island being the city that has one of the largest Sri Lankan communities in the USA, any damage for the city will have some impact for the Sri Lankan community. There are many Sri Lankans who had to be evacuated from their homes, and many have lost all their belongings. The Sri Lankan temples in Staten Island and Queens are assisting Sri Lankans along with the Sri Lankan Permanent Mission to New York and other Sri Lankan groups. We now join with the popular Sri Lankan singer Jaliya Wickramasuriya, who is in New York as part of their US tour with a well-known Sri Lankan singer Latha Walpola. Jagat, ඔබ ඇමරිකාවට පැමිණි පසු නිව්යෝක් නුවර සිටියදී ඔබ යම්කිසි අත්දැකීමකට මුහුණ පෑවා. ඒ අත්දැකීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් යමක් ඔබ මේ අපේ ප්‍රේක්ෂකයන් සමග බෙදා ගන්න කැමතිද?
ඔව් මම හිතනවා දැන් මේ වසර ගණනාවකට පස්සේ මම නිව්යෝක් නුවරට නැවතත් ආවේ. මේ ඔක්තෝබර් 25 වෙනිදා තමයි නිව්යෝක් නුවරට ආවේ. ඇවිල්ලා ඉතාම දින දෙකක් තුනක් වගේ කාලයක් ඇතුළත අපිට දැනගන්න ලැබුණා විශාල මේ සැන්ඩි කියලා කුණාටුවක් එනවා කියන එක. ඉතින් මම හිතනවා මටත් ඒ අත්දැකීම ලැබිලා තිබුණේ නැහැ. විශාල විනාශයක් සිදු වුණා. අපි හිටියේ ක්වීන්ස් කියන මේ ප්‍රදේශයේ නිව්යෝක් නුවර. ඒකෙත් මම හිතනවා අපි හිටපු නිවසේ ඉඳලා සාමාන්‍යයෙන් කිලෝමීටර් 3-4කට එහා පැත්තේ විශාල විනාශයන් සිදු වුණා. නමුත් අපිට යම් වාසනාවකට කරදරයක් සිදු වුණේ නැහැ. සහ ඒකේ ඊළඟ ප්‍රතිඵලය උනේ 27 වෙනිදා සහ 3 වෙනිදා තිබුණ සංදර්ශන දෙක තව ටිකක් එහාට කල් ගියා. මම හිතනවා ඉතින් මේ අත්දැකීම් හැම එකක්ම අපේ ජීවිතේ අනපේක්ෂිත දේවල් ලැබෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒවක් මේ අවස්ථාවත් එවැනි අවස්ථාවක් කැරීටයි මම විශ්වාස කරන්නේ.
ඔබට යමක් කියන්න පුළුවන්ද ඇමරිකාවේ ඔබ මේ යෙදී සිටින සංගීත චාරිකාව ගැන?
ඔව් මෙවර කලාශූරී ලතා වල්පොල සමග මා මේ උතුරු ඇමරිකාවේ සංචාරය කරන මේ සංගීත සංදර්ශන මූලික වශයෙන් සංවිධානය කරන්නට අපට ආරාධනා කළේ නිමල් සහ කල්යාණි ප්‍රේමරත්න යුවල ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන් නිව්යෝක් නුවර 3 වෙනිදා පවත්වන්නට යෙදෙන සංදර්ශනය 24 වෙනිදා දක්වා කල් ගියා. 24 වෙනිදාට වෙනකොට මම හිතනවා තවත් ඒකට රසික පිරිසක් එකතු වෙලා තින්න බවට අපිට දැනගන්න ලැබුණා. 10 වෙනිදා පවත්වන්නට යෙදෙන්නේ ෆ්ලොරිඩා ප්‍රදේශයේ සහ 17 වෙනිදා වොෂින්ටන් ප්‍රදේශයේ සංදර්ශන පැවැත්වෙනවා. මම හිතනවා කලාශූරී ලතා වල්පොල මහත්මිය ඊටාම විශාල ගීත ප්‍රමාණයක් අපේ රටේ ගීත ශාස්ත්‍රයට එක්කලා ගායන ශිල්පිනිය. එතකොට ඇය සජීව ජීවමානව මේ වැඩසටහන සඳහා සහභාගී වෙනවා. ඒ වාසනාව මම හිතනවා ශ්‍රාවක ප්‍රේක්ෂක ජනතාවට ඉඳ ගන්නට අවස්ථාව ලැබෙයි කියලා. ඉතින් මේක තාම දුර්ලභ අවස්ථාවක් හැටියටයි මම දකින්නේ මගේ ජීවිතයේ විශාල භාග්‍යයක් ඇය සමග මේ සංචාරයට පැමිණෙන්න ලැබීම.
We now bring you the final segment of our interview with the Sri Lankan ambassador to USA, Mr. Jaliya Wickramasuriya. What efforts have you taken to engage with the members of some Tamil Diaspora who are still not convinced with the Sri Lankan government? The efforts that the government has taken towards addressing the grievances of the Tamil community in Sri Lanka?
Actually, it's a very important question, and this is where that I work. I put more than 50% of my time. I have been personally meeting with members of the Tamil Diaspora, both in the Greater Washington area and on visit to other states too. I have also been encouraging and facilitating their visit to Sri Lanka to see for themselves and tremendous development that are taking place in Sri Lanka, particularly in the north and the east. And also when I visit to different states, I make sure when I go to different states to meet Sri Lankan diaspora, I make sure to meet Tamil diaspora for sure. And I am giving more time for them, especially they need to be told and the correct story, and encourage them to visit Sri Lanka and for them to see themselves, to understand what is in Sri Lanka, because most of these Tamil diaspora members have not visited Sri Lanka for last 25 years.
How can Sri Lankan Americans help in the post-war Sri Lanka?
Yes, I can address them actually. What I have to tell them is, please assist the embassy to spread the message that Sri Lanka is peaceful and reconciled country. Talk to your congressmen and senators and inform them about the correct story of Sri Lanka. Promote investment project in Sri Lanka and promote tourism in Sri Lanka. Encourage your friends to visit Sri Lanka. Support rebuilding infrastructure in the former conflict areas, especially in the north and the east.
President Barack Obama won a historic second term as the president for 4 more years in the United States of America, winning a broad support from moderates, women and minorities. With President Obama's victory, the world witnessed America leading the way toward more diversity.
What makes America exceptional are the bonds that hold together the most diverse nation on earth. The freedom which so many Americans have fought for and died for comes with responsibilities as well as rights, and among those are love and charity and duty and patriotism. That's what makes America great.
World may find many faults with America and America's foreign policy, but this election will show the world what America is all about. Obama, an African-American candidate, won the election in a country where 73% of voters are white Americans. Mitt Romney, a Mormon, won the nomination of the Republican Party to contest against Obama in a country that is predominantly a Protestant. There were no election violence nor any election-related deaths. After the results were announced, Romney called Obama and congratulated him and wished him well. Obama in his victory speech pledged that he will sit with Romney to listen to his vision for America and to get Romney's support as much as possible. No wonder America is the envy of the world. We as Sri Lankan Americans, while offering our best wishes for President Obama, celebrate this wonderful country where a son of a foreign student from Kenya could be elected for the second time as the President of the United States.
I believe we can keep the promise of our founding. The idea that if you're willing to work hard, it doesn't matter who you are, or where you come from, or what you look like, or where you love. It doesn't matter whether you're black or white, or Hispanic or Asian, or Native American, or young or old, or rich or poor, able, disabled, gay or straight. You can make it here in America if you're willing to try.
That is the American dream we cherish. That concludes our news edition. We meet you again with another news edition of News, Views and Entertainment from Boston and USA. Till then, goodbye.